Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to show you how to update custom fields or any field on your job using make.com as the API integration. Now, the purpose for doing this is, in my case here for this particular video, is when a job gets booked, I want to create a Google Drive folder and I want to link that folder to the job so that I can put all of the job assets in there and it's easily accessible in that public link. I currently had this automation set up where it would create that Google Drive folder, but now I've built it out to the next phase, which is going to find that URL and then update or create a new custom field in my Tave account. So let me walk you through this. This first step here is just a webhook step that I'm posting a custom webhook address inside of my account here from within Tave in the automations. And I'm doing that based on a job being booked. So when a job gets booked, it's going to send a webhook to this webhook address here, and it's going to send over a few fields like the job name and the job ULID, which is the Tave API ID for that job, which we're going to use to identify it in just a bit. And then it's going to create a Google Drive folder. And for this step, it's just looking in my Drive account and it's creating that folder with a certain format, which is basically the job date reformatted this way and the client's names or the couple's name on the folder. We are marking the folder as shared, as you can see here. And then the next step, I'm actually copying some files inside of my Google Drive to that new folder, just so that I have the basic design files to work with in my business. And now this is where it gets fun. So in order to update a custom field, and this is assuming we already have the field created in Tave, we need to first see what the field ID is. So this step is a get request of all the custom fields in your account. And I'm actually going to delete that. That's not the value we want. We're going to use this URL address in your existing Tave API credentials, which you can go back to my first videos if you're not sure how to add that. And we're just going to run this once by right-clicking and running the module. And you can see under the data and items, we have a collection of all of our custom fields. So you can click through these one at a time to see what those fields are. So this is the name of that field in Tave, for instance, right here. Here's the token of that field in Tave. But in order to use this in the next step of the automation, we need this ID. So in my case, the ID that I'm looking for is based on a Google Drive event files is what I've named it. So I can click through all of these. I can also just click up at the top here and download the output bundles, do a quick Control F search for event files, and there we go. A little bit faster than clicking through that huge list. So here I copy my ID for that custom field. And the next step, I'm going to set that ID. So you can see I've already had it set and I gave it a name just so that I can use this in the later modules and I can easily identify it. If you want to update more than one ID, custom ID or otherwise any custom field, you can add an item here and do the same thing. Go back, find it, paste the new value in here. Now, the reason we're assigning this as a variable is, again, so we can use it in the future modules. We don't have to remember it or write this elsewhere. Now, the next step is going to be the get job details. So the way this works is in order to process these changes to Tave, we need to do what's called a get request followed immediately by a put request. The put request is going to update all of the fields on that job. So we need to make sure we send all the existing fields plus the changes we want to make. So for this get job call, it's just a simple get request to the job endpoint with your API job ID at the end, which we get from our webhook step. Now, this router step allows us to branch in two different directions. So if the field value does not yet exist in our job, it's going to create that new value down here. And up above, it's going to check. And if the field value does exist, it's going to replace it and update that job. That way, we're not getting an error by trying to submit two of the same field IDs. So starting from the bottom route, this filter basically checks the data from the get job details step, which you can see here, and it makes sure it does not contain the event files field ID, which is that ID I previously identified in that prior step. Now, one important thing in this get job details, make sure parse response is set to no. Typically, you'll want that to be yes, but we're going to want it to be no so that we can process the entire body of data. Now, with that filter in place, our next step here is going to be to split our body request and inject a new variable, or the new part of the request that contains our variable. Kind of complex, but what we're essentially doing here is, as you can see, we're choosing the previous step, which contains the body of the original GET request, and I'm splitting it right here at the custom fields mark. So because this is the very start of that custom fields part of the entire body request, which we can see there's a part of it there, then on the next part of this, which is item 2, I can define any new custom field variables that I want. Now these have to be typed out exactly like you see. So I'm re-adding the part that I just took out here, that custom fields with the open bracket. And then in order to add a new custom field, we need to add exactly like this with the open curly brace here, followed by the field ID in parentheses, colon, another set of parentheses with the field ID that we set previously. So I am actually going to delete this and choose my mapped value, since that's what you'll be using, a comma, and then value in parentheses, followed by another colon, another set of parentheses, and inside of that last set of parentheses, we have our new value that we're updating that field with. And then we finally have a close curly bracket, followed by a comma. So if you're just adding one custom field, this is all you need. If you're adding a second custom field, you would copy everything in these curly braces here, paste it, add a new comma at the end, and then of course, change the field ID to whatever this new field ID is, which you can set in that tool step back here. So let me delete what I just added, and we'll continue. So with this split and that new line of data set, this next step here is actually just going to combine it all back together so that we have one solid request that we can send off to Tave that will be accepted by the API. So in this step, I'm getting the first block of that split string because we split it in two. And then I'm injecting the new custom field variable in the middle. And then I'm getting the second block of that split string so that it closes everything out. So this allows us to stick something right where we need it based on what we've split in the previous step. Now, after that, we have a transform to JSON step where we're just choosing that block of text from the prior step. And then we have a parse JSON step, and this just allows us to get it in the format that we need for the Tave API request. So just like you can see here. And then finally, we have our update job endpoint, which, as you can see here, same thing as the get endpoint, but we're doing a put request. And in the body, it's a raw JSON, and the request content is just this mapped variable from the previous step. You can optionally parse the response. That'll just help you see if you have any errors or typos in your code, because you'll get a response back that validates that route. Now, before we move up at the top here, because I am adding a new field, I'm just going to run this once, and I'm going to show you what happens when I move from a lead, and you can see here, here's my current custom fields, to a booked job. So I'll save this. It's going to send that webhook, and you can see it started immediately. It's creating the Google Drive, and of course, it's being routed here because the field doesn't exist. And if we look at the data here, you can see if it's filled out with data and there's no errors, then it definitely went through. So back in Tave, if I just refresh this page, everything remains the same, but I have a new field here for my event files folder, which is a publicly accessible Google Drive folder. So if you're just trying to update fields, this is how you do it. If you want to change something that's not a custom field and it's a different variable value in Tave, this is the step that you're going to need to modify. Essentially, you're going to change where it splits based on where that field currently exists, and then you're going to change what it's called based on whatever the field name actually is in Tave, based on the documentation and the previous GET request, where you can evaluate all that data in the raw. Now for the next part of this video, we're going to look at the updating the existing fields. So a little bit different process because instead of splitting the data in two and injecting a new code into the middle and putting it back together like a sandwich, we're actually just going to search for the field that we want and we're going to replace it using regex. First is our route step. So this is checking to see if the data from that previous get step contains the existing field ID that we've identified in the tool step. So if it does, then it means it exists and we can continue. Now I have a text parser module, which is going to let us search for a regular expression. And in that regular expression, we can return a new value based on whatever we want to change. You can see right here, new value goes here. And then we're searching that previous data text. This is going to just make the change right away inside of the existing block. So it's a little quicker. We don't need to break it down into as many steps. In my particular instance here, I'm searching for the field ID that I've identified right down here. So as long as you are also searching for the same type of field ID, you can use this same setup. Just make sure you update the field ID in your tool step. And then for the new value, you're just going to change the part in the second set of parentheses here. So the new value goes here. This is whatever that field is going to be updated to. So this right now is the public Google folder. If I just leave this as new value goes here and I run this again, that's what it's going to get updated to. So let me switch this back to a lead just so I can run this automation one more time and you can see what that looks like. We're going to click OK. Next two steps are the same as the last, or next three rather, are pretty much the same as the last three. We're transforming the previous module to JSON, and then we're parsing it in that same format so that the API call can understand it. And then finally, we're doing another put request with that raw JSON body, just like you see. So I'm going to run this automation again, and I'm going to move this to a booked job, but keep in mind, I still already have my event files field filled out. So I'll send that off. There you go. It's running and it should route right up top, just like we see. And we'll check the data. That looks good. So if we refresh in Tave, here we are. New value goes here. So that's it. That's how you update or create a new field in your Tave account. If there's anything that you need help with, let me know in the comments and let me know what future videos you'd like to see regarding Tave, Make.com, or really any other automations for your business. Thanks for watching.